Welcome back, Depth Divers. Today we're switching things up a bit. Yeah, we're diving into a fictional world this time.
Ooh, exciting.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Our source material is Torn Bond, and it's the first book in, well, this romance series that's been getting a ton of buzz.
Corn Bond, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really interesting look at, like, undercover operations and family secrets. And then there's this romance that could, well, I mean, it could totally wreck the main character's life. Her name is Belle Easton. I think it's super interesting how this genre, I mean, romance, it kind of lets us look at, human emotions and relationships, but like
Yeah.
in this really heightened setting,
Right,
almost
right.
like theatrical.
It's true. Okay, so we've got Belle Easton.
Yeah.
At first glance, she just seems like a normal college student.
Yeah.
She volunteers at like an animal shelter and
Yeah.
works at a coffee shop. Pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
But then there's this little detail about her that I think is interesting. She really loves spending time at her family's lake house. It's like her sanctuary. I don't know, it just feels like almost like foreshadowing for like the storm that's coming.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that storm, I mean, it comes in the form of her family's big secret.
Oh,
Her dad,
yeah.
Brody Easton. He's a DEA agent.
Not your typical dad.
Nope, not at all. And then, of course, she's got her brothers. There's Cade, the older brother. He's like this almost mythical figure.
Right.
And then Asher, he's the younger one. And he's like super protective.
Like really protective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like she's got her own personal security detail.
Yeah.
But, way more emotional baggage.
So much baggage. And then she gets thrown head first into this dangerous world when she accidentally walks into a club. And this is not just any club.
Oh,
It's owned by, wait for it, Eduardo Garza. The big bad drug lord.
talking about wrong place, wrong time.
Right, it's his club.
Ah.
That doesn't seem accidental, does it? Almost like the author is setting a trap.
Yeah, and you know who she runs into there? Ford.
Ford.
Yeah, he's an undercover DEA agent, and he's been working to take Garza down for like months. I mean, come on, this can't be just a coincidence, right? This encounter, I think, is the author's way of making these two worlds collide. And then the kiss?
The kiss, I mean, to protect Belle's identity, Ford kisses her, right. But obviously it's more than that. There's a spark there. Have you noticed how authors use a kiss to kind of jumpstart a romance? It's like this primal thing, creating
Sure.
this instant connection. But in this case, it's like throwing gasoline on an already, like, raging fire.
That's such a classic romance
Yeah.
trope. But I think the author, they elevate it by making it part of this high-stakes world of undercover operations. It's not just about the romance,
Sure.
It's about the danger that comes with it. I mean, because Ford's job, it puts Belle in immediate danger, like almost immediately after someone tries to break into her apartment.
Yeah.
And then she's forced to confront this, like, the reality of her dad's world,
Yeah.
the danger.
It's like the author is telling Belle, no more playing it safe. You're in the deep end now. And Ford, I mean, he's battling with his feelings for her, right? He knows that a relationship is a liability. In fact, he even tries to convince her that the kiss, like, meant nothing. So typical, that classic, strong, silent hero type.
It is. But I think it's more than just a trope. Ford's fighting this internal battle, duty versus desire.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's trained to compartmentalize, to detach from his emotions, because those emotions could like totally compromise his mission.
Right.
But his feelings for Belle, I think, they're breaking down that wall he's built up. He's human after all, right?
He is. And speaking of cracks in facades, Garza, he finds out about Belle and Ford.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And he is not happy. Not only is he furious, I mean, he's threatened. This is a man who's used to getting what he wants, and now he's fixated on revenge. He even uses that word, puta.
I know.
I know, to describe Belle. It just shows, how little he thinks of her. The author doesn't shy away from showing us how cruel he can be.
Nope, not at all. And this discovery, it just throws everything into overdrive. I mean, Ford's mission, compromised. Belle's in more danger than ever. And, the tension is just unbearable.
Yeah.
But despite the threat, Ford and his team, they managed to pull off this really daring raid on Garza's mansion, and they arrest him.
It's a high-stakes scene. I
Does
mean,
seem long.
the author really knows how to write action, but even with Garza behind bars, the threat's still there.
Right. I mean, he made it very clear that Belle is his target. And he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who lets a little thing like prison stop him. And then, it's just awful. Belle's roommate and her boyfriend, they're murdered. Just like that. Garza's revenge is swift and brutal.
This is where the book takes a really dark turn.
Yeah.
I mean, the violence, it escalates and it becomes so personal. It's like this message that no one close to Belle is safe. It also shows the lasting impact of Garza's actions, how they ripple outward and destroy lives. It leaves Belle completely isolated. They send her to a safe house for protection. I mean, she's lost her friends, her sense of security, and she's forced to face the reality that her life will never be the same. And then on top of it all, she finds out she's pregnant with Ford's child. What a bombshell.
It's like the author's just piling on the drama, isn't it? But it's more than that. The pregnancy, it adds this whole other layer of complexity because now Belle has to confront her feelings for Ford
Yeah.
and deal with the thought of raising a child alone in all this chaos.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the future. What's going to happen to the child? Will she ever escape this life? Will she ever be safe?
And then just when you think things can't get any worse, Ford is killed. Gone. Just like that. I mean, talk about a gut-wrenching ending. This part of the story ends with Belle facing an uncertain future on her own.
The way Ford's death happens, so suddenly I think it's deliberate. It shows just how unpredictable this world is, this world Belle's been thrown into, where love and loss are all mixed up. It makes you really feel the loss, both for Belle and, I think, for the reader. It's like a punch to the gut.
It is. And then there's the pregnancy, this little flicker of hope in all the darkness. It's this symbol of their love that lives on even in death. But it also raises so many questions. How will Belle deal with being a single mom in this world? Will she be able to keep her child safe from Garza?
The pregnancy is such a strong symbol. It shows resilience, the fact that love can endure. It hints at new beginnings even after all this loss. I think it suggests that Belle's journey isn't over, that she's got a new purpose, a new reason to fight for a future without fear. But can she achieve that? That's the question that sticks with you.
Yeah. And that's what makes Torn Bond so compelling. It leaves you emotionally drained, heartbroken, but also somehow hopeful. I think it shows the author's skill,
Yeah.
their ability to create a story that stays with you long after you finish it.
And the other characters, we can't forget about them. They add so much to the story. Belle's brothers, Kate and Asher, they're this incredible support system for her. They remind you that even in the darkest times, family can be there for you. They can be a source of strength and comfort.
It's like they're her own Greek chorus,
Right.
offering advice, sometimes a little comic relief, and of course some good old-fashioned sibling rivalry. Their interactions feel so real.
They do. And they highlight how important family is.
Mm-hmm.
The bonds you can't break, even when everything else falls apart. It's a theme that runs through the whole book.
Yeah.
This idea that even when you face terrible loss, there's always something worth fighting for, someone to love.
And even though Bill and Ford's romance ends so tragically, their connection, I mean, it really changes both of them. Ford, the tough, closed-off agent, he learns to be vulnerable. He learns about the power of human connection.
Yeah. It's a classic case of opposites attract,
Yeah.
right? But it's way more than that. Their relationship challenges, like these traditional ideas of romance, it reminds us that love can happen anywhere, that sometimes the strongest connections, they happen when you're facing danger, when things are uncertain. It's a powerful message, one that sticks with you.
So where does all this leave us? Well, Torn Bond is a roller coaster. I mean, it throws you into the deep end and doesn't let go. It's dark, it's gritty, but it's also got these moments of tenderness, of humor, of hope. It's a story that makes you think. It challenges how you see love, loss, and what it means to be strong.
And it's just the beginning. The story continues in Tide Bond. That's the next book. And we'll get to see how Belle handles her new reality, how she deals with this future that's been shaped by love and loss. Will she heal? Will she try to get justice for the people she's lost? And maybe most importantly, can she create a life for herself and her child that honors Ford's memory, but also paves the way for a better future?
Those are some big questions, and we'll have to dive into Tide Bond to find out the answers. But before we do that, I want to hear from you. What resonated with you most in Torn Bond? Was it Belle's strength, Ford's sacrifice, or how the book explores love and loss in a world where danger is everywhere?
And what about the ending? Did it leave you satisfied? Or did you want more closure? Did you see Ford's death coming? Or did it completely blindside you? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this captivating, complex novel.
I mean, Belle, she's drawn to that intensity, right? It's like she sees right through that tough exterior. She sees the vulnerability underneath. Remember that scene at the lake house in Belle's bedroom? That's like a major turning point for them. Oh, yeah, the lake house, her safe haven. It becomes the backdrop for this, like, forbidden passion. It's almost symbolic, like they're trying to grab a little piece of normal and all this chaos, but it's also super risky. Belle is totally betraying her dad's trust and Ford is putting his entire mission on the line.
Exactly. And the author uses the setting so well here. The lake house, I mean, it represents stability, family, tradition.
Hmm.
And it's contrasted with all this turmoil in their relationship, and it just like makes everything more tense. It emphasizes that their love is forbidden.
It's like they're playing with fire, both literally and figuratively. But those moments they steal together, they're fleeting. I mean, the break-in, the murders, it's a brutal reminder that fairy tales don't always have happy endings. They have to face the fact that their love exists in a world where those happy endings aren't guaranteed.
Right. And it forces them to make choices. Ford chooses duty. He's convinced that pushing Belle away is the only way he can protect her. He's basically sacrificing his own happiness for what he thinks is the greater good.
Mm.
But is it really? I mean, is he also trying to protect himself from the pain of losing her?
That's a really good question. Because it does seem like he's running from his feelings just as much as he's trying to protect Belle. I mean, it's heartbreaking seeing him try to convince himself and her that the kiss was a mistake. He knows he's lying, and it's killing him.
It is. And Belle, she chooses to embrace how she feels. Even though Ford's trying to push her away, she can see the love he's hiding behind all that stoicism. She's willing to risk everything for a chance at happiness, even if it means defying her dad and dealing with the fallout.
She's so strong, even when she's vulnerable. It's interesting how the author shows strength, not as this unyielding force, but as the ability to be vulnerable, to love fiercely even when it's scary.
Absolutely. Belle's strength is in her compassion, her willingness to fight for what she believes in. I mean, she's not some damsel in distress. She's a woman making her own choices, even when those choices come with the crazy risks.
And it leads to their tragic separation. Ford's death, I mean, as shocking as it is, it almost feels inevitable. Like the author is reminding us that in this world, happiness is fragile and love can disappear in an instant.
Yeah, it's like this brutal reminder about the consequences of living life on the edge. And the way the author describes Ford's death, so sudden, so unexpected, it leaves you reeling. You feel the loss so strongly, both for Belle and for the reader. It really is like a punch to the gut.
It is. And then there's the pregnancy. In the middle of all this grief, it's like this tiny little spark of hope, a symbol of their love that survives even death. But it also brings up so many questions. How is Belle going to handle being a single mother in this dangerous world? Can she protect her child from Garza's revenge?
The pregnancy is such a powerful symbol. It represents resilience. It represents that love can endure. It hints at new beginnings, even in the face of overwhelming loss. I think it suggests that Belle's journey isn't over, that she has a new purpose, a new reason to fight for a future free from fear. But can she achieve that? That's the question that sticks with you.
Exactly. And that's what makes Torn Bond so compelling. It leaves you emotionally drained, heartbroken, but also somehow hopeful. I think it shows the author's skill, their ability to create a story that stays with you long after you finish it.
And the other characters, we can't forget about them. They add so much to the story. Belle's brothers, Cade and Asher, they're this incredible support system for her. They remind you that even in the darkest times, family can be there for you. They can be a source of strength and comfort.
They're like her own personal Greek chorus.
Right. Offering advice, sometimes a little comic relief, and of course some good old-fashioned sibling rivalry. Their interactions feel so real.
They do. And they highlight how important family is, the bonds you can't break. Even when everything else falls apart, it's a theme that runs through the whole book. This idea that even when you face terrible loss, there's always something worth fighting for, someone to love.
And even though Belle and Ford's romance ends so tragically, their connection changes both of them. Ford, the tough, closed-off agent, he learns to be vulnerable. He learns about the power of human connection.
Yeah. It's a classic case of opposites attract, right? But it's way more than that. They're relationship challenges, like these traditional ideas of romance. It reminds us that love can happen anywhere, that sometimes the strongest connections, they happen when you're facing danger, when things are uncertain. It's a powerful message, one that sticks with you. So where does all this leave us? Well, Torn Bond is a roller coaster. I mean, it throws you into the deep end and doesn't let go. It's dark, it's gritty, but it's also got these moments of tenderness, of humor, of hope. It's a story that makes you think. It challenges how you see love, loss, and what it means to be strong.
And it's just the beginning. The story continues in Tide Bond. That's the next book. And we'll get to see how Belle handles her new reality, how she deals with this future that's been shaped by love and loss.
Hmm.
Will she heal? Will she try to get justice for the people she's lost? And maybe most importantly, can she create a life for herself and her child that honors Ford's memory, but also paves the way for a better future?
Those are some big questions, and we'll have to dive into Tide Bond to find out the answers. But before we do that, I want to hear from you. What resonated with you most in Torn Bond? Was it Bill's strength, Ford's sacrifice, or how the book explores love and loss in a world where danger is everywhere?
And what about the ending? Did it leave you satisfied? Or did you want more closure? Did you see Ford's death coming? Or did it completely blindside you? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this captivating, complex novel.
It's interesting, even with all the intensity in this story, the author still manages to create these moments of quiet beauty, little details that make the story feel real. Like the scenes with Belle at the animal shelter, it seems so simple, but it tells you so much about her.
Oh, totally. Those scenes are, super important. They show us how much empathy Belle has. That instinct she has to care for those who can't care for themselves. I feel like she finds peace in their silence, in their, unconditional love. It's such a contrast to the chaos and violence of her dad's world, and it really highlights that internal struggle she's going through.
Yeah, it's like she's looking for something normal, a way to ground herself when everything's spinning out of control. I think it makes her even more relatable. I mean, haven't we all felt like we need to escape from the pressure sometimes? To find comfort in something simple and pure?
Right, exactly. And it reminds you that even in a world that feels dark, there's still room for kindness, for compassion. Belle's connection with the animals, her need to protect them, it speaks volumes about her strength, about her inherent goodness.
And then there's her relationship with her brothers, Cade and Asher. They inject this much-needed lightness into the story, a reminder that family can be there for you, for support, for laughs, even when everything else is falling apart.
Their dynamic is so well done. Cade, the older brother, he's got this quiet strength, this wisdom that comes with experience. And then Asher, the younger one, he's all energy, all protective,
Yeah.
fiercely loyal to his sister.
Do you remember that scene where they all jump in the lake together at the lake house?
Oh, yeah.
It's such a small moment, but it's full of joy. A sense of freedom that feels so precious considering everything they're dealing with.
It's such a great scene, and it really highlights how important those family bonds are, those connections that are deeper than just blood. It reminds you that even when it feels like the world's falling apart, there are people who will always be there for you.
It makes you think about your own family, your support system, the people you can always count on no matter what. So that's definitely something to be grateful for. And even though Belle and Ford's romance ends so tragically, their connection, it leaves a mark on both of them. Ford, the stoic, undercover agent, he learns about vulnerability, about the power of human connection.
It is a classic opposites attract situation, right?
Right.
But it's way deeper than that.
Yeah.
Their relationship challenges all those traditional ideas about romance. It reminds us that love can happen anywhere, anytime. That sometimes the most powerful connections are the ones that are forged in danger, when things are uncertain. It's a really powerful message.
And Belle comes out of this experience even stronger, even more determined to build a future for herself and her child. It breaks your heart that she has to do it alone, but you get the feeling that she can handle anything.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she's faced loss, betrayal, fear, and she's still standing. She's a survivor, a warrior, and a mother. And as we finish Torn Bond, you're left with this feeling of anticipation, wanting to know what happens next, to see how her story plays out.
It really is a testament to the author, their ability to leave you wanting more, to make you care about these characters and what happens to them. So what does all this mean for you, dear listener? If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out Torn Bond. It's a story that will stick with you, it'll make you think, and it will make you feel all the feels.
It's about love, loss, duty, the complexities of family. But it's also about resilience, about finding strength within yourself when things are tough. It reminds you that even in the darkest times, hope can survive and love can find a way.
Beautifully said. And if you're already a fan of Torn Bond, don't forget to check out Tide Bond. That's the next book in the series. We'll be back soon to deep dive into that one, so stay tuned. Until then, happy reading and keep those brains buzzing.